Hey there, I'm Zach with Colony Roofers. Today we're going to go over how much does a TPO roof cost, all the way from the decking up to the TPO. I will go ahead and tell you, just so you're not disappointed at the end, we can't go through specific pricing on each component because it's constantly changing with the market, especially as the supply chain's been struggling for the past couple of years. We constantly get price updates. But what we are going to do is go through how to help you kind of determine where in a range of cost would your roof end up based on the different components, the type of building you have, what materials might be needed for it, and hopefully that'll help you better determine just kind of what to budget and give you a ballpark of how much your TPO roof is going to cost. All right, so the first component of your TPO roof is going to be the decking. A lot of times the way we think about TPO roofing is from the deck up. So for purposes of our conversation today, we'll go at it that same way. So when it comes to decking, there's a few main types of decking. One of them is going to be metal. It's very common on commercial buildings. If you have low-story building, maybe a shopping center, medical office building, something that is just 1 to 5 stories, that typically is going to have a metal deck. But that's one type of decking. The other types are generally going to be a wood structure. So think of, you probably see a lot of apartment buildings being built where they're built with sticks is what they call them. So it's stick built or wood built. And so the deck on that roofing system would probably be either plywood or OSB board, something that's, a pressed wood. The other types are going to be lightweight concrete and concrete. Those are kind of the other two really big bucket common roofing materials. When we talk about the cost of a TPO roof, most of the time we're thinking in terms of a re-roof. That's when most people would be looking at this video or trying to figure out an answer. The decking only comes into play if it needs to be replaced. And when it comes to replacing decking, that's typically going to be either on a metal roof or on a wood stick structure roof deck. And that's because those ones can rust out or rot out. Rust if it's metal, rot if it's wood from any water damage. So when we're talking about replacing roof decking in a new TPO roof, metal is always going to be the most expensive. It's just a lot more expensive to replace structural steel as opposed to replacing plywood sheets or OSB board. And so if you're in the market for a TPO roof, you always want to take into account, do I have soft spots in the roof right now? Can I look up and see from inside my building that maybe some of the metal decking is rusted out? That's something that would typically be a change order on a roofing contractor's side, but you want to go ahead and make sure you have an idea of how much you might have to pay as the roof is torn up if rust is found in certain spots. In terms of how much does a TPO roof cost, decking is one component that could get added on to the overall roof cost. It's not a direct material associated with specifically a TPO roof, but something you need to keep in mind for any roofing system and for a TPO roof if you're getting it replaced. Okay, so once you have an idea of what type of decking you have on your roofing system, that's going to help determine one of the biggest factors that's going to drive the cost of your TPO roof. So if we have a deck that's either metal or wood, we call those nailable structures. Those can be fastened into with screws or nails. That's why they call them nailable. And in TPO roofing, we're typically going to be using screws, not nails. But nonetheless, what it determines is, can we mechanically fasten a roofing system or this new TPO roof, or does it have to be fully adhered, meaning glued down to the building? So if you have a metal deck or a wood structure, you typically can get away with mechanically fastening it, which is typically going to be more cost effective. If you have concrete, lightweight concrete, or a variety of different situations where maybe you can't afford to do mechanically attached, need more wind uplift potential, there's a variety of different situations where you might run into the need for adhesive system. And that tends to get a good bit more expensive. So take into account, if I have wood or metal, there's a good chance that you can get away on the lower end of the cost range when it comes to TPO roofing. And if you're on the concrete or lightweight concrete side, you're probably going to have to go with a fully adhered system, which is going to ramp your price up more to the higher end of the range. All right, the next factor that's going to go into how much does a TPO roof cost is going to be the insulation and what kind of insulation you need for your specific building. So in the state of Georgia, which is where we are, Colony Roofers is located in Atlanta. The state requirement is R25 insulation for roofing. The wind area that we're in is actually an R20 zone, but the state of Georgia has bumped up the requirements to R25. So we have to adhere to those requirements. So when it comes to that, if we are doing a full roof replacement and we tear off the existing roof down to the decking, and we then go and install a new roofing system, we would need to use insulation that comes up to current building code, which is R25 in Atlanta. And so you're going to have for polyiso foam is one of your options for insulation. That is going to be about 4.4 inches of polyiso insulation. On the flip side, you could also use EPS. There's different types of insulation basically, so that can affect the pricing of the TPO roof. The important thing to know here is that if you're installing insulation, it's going to make the cost of the roof substantially higher. On another note or a side note to that, if you're having to fully adhere, like we talked about earlier, insulation to your roofing system or to your roof deck, that's going to make it go even to a higher point. All right, the next aspect of a roofing system, a TPO roof, is going to be coverboard. So coverboard is going to have an impact on how much your TPO roof costs because it's an additional material that may be needed. But the most important thing to know in terms of how much does a TPO roof cost is, do you have a coverboard or do you not? Coverboard is typically something that's going to go on top of the roofing insulation in order to provide some fireproofing and some structure to the roof. So if you have a roof that has a bunch of rooftop HVAC units, and there's going to be people up there working on it all the time, walking on the insulation, the architect or the roofing system designer may decide that it's important to have a coverboard to protect that insulation from getting damaged. It also can stop things if there's ever debris that falls on the roof or something heavy that drops on it. It can stop damage to the insulation because it's a very firm material. So in terms of how much does a TPO roof cost, the question is, do you have a coverboard or do you not have a coverboard? That's going to add additional cost per square foot depending on what type of coverboard you have. All right, so the last portion of the roof that's going to determine how much does a TPO roof cost is the actual TPO itself. So the membrane that's on top of the insulation or the coverboard that we've either mechanically fastened or fully adhered to the building. So when it comes to the TPO membrane itself, there's really just three options out there in the market for the thickness of it. And we determine the thickness of a roofing membrane typically by what they call millage, and that's how we determine how thick it is, and that in turn determines how long the roof should last. So more or less, you're deciding how long do you want this membrane to last. That gets translated into a millage, and then all the major manufacturers are going to have the three standard millages that are out there. So we'll start at the top, which is an 80 mil TPO membrane. Then we have a 60 mil, then we have a 45 mil. Typically, the 80 mil TPO membrane is going to come with up to a 30-year warranty, depending on the manufacturer. The 60 mil membrane is going to come with up to a 20-year warranty. And then the 10 mil is typically going to be good for a 10 or a 15-year warranty, depending on the manufacturer. But in terms of how much they cost, that's really the driver. Just the thickness of the physical membrane is going to be the big determinant in how much the TPO roof actually costs. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that was helpful, even though we didn't go into number specifics. It's really difficult because the prices are constantly changing, and unfortunately we can't update this video on a weekly basis or a monthly basis as the prices continue to change. If you have questions about your specific building though, please feel free to drop a comment below or reach out via email on our website. We'd be happy to take a look at your project or to just answer your questions for that specific building.